Thank you, Paul Roberts. Paul Roberts is our announcer on all things on the Funnel Radio channel. Our subject today is the 3 biggest mistakes sales managers make and how to fix them. Now, to hear salespeople put it, sales managers make all kinds of mistakes. It could be training. It could be forecasting. It could be following up sales leads. It could be not having a good relationship with marketing. It could be not traveling with salespeople. It can be all kinds of things. And because of that, I've gone to an expert in sales management. I've gone to Bernadette McClelland. She's the CEO of 3 Red Folders, a boutique sales performance and sales leadership practice headquartered in Melbourne, Australia. She's also the founder of the Hive, a platform for trailblazing women who want to do B2B sales differently. Bernadette has been a sales coach for Harvard MBA students, held senior business development roles in corporate Australia, owned a 7-figure family business, been an APAC business coach for Anthony Robbins, authored 5 books on selling and personal leadership, has clients across 14 countries and 4 continents. She is clearly a respected industry resource who loves to make a difference in the business world, and that's why I've come to her to tell us what are the 3 biggest mistakes sales managers make. But it isn't just enough to tell us those mistakes. You've got to also tell us what can they do about it. Bernadette, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
We'll talk a little bit more about your company after we take a break today, but let's dive right into our subject matter here, the 3 biggest mistakes sales managers make.
Absolutely. And, in my experience, working in different cultures, working with different businesses, working in different industries, at the end of the day, what we're working with is people. You get a cross-section of experience, you get a cross-section of leaders or managers who have had formal training, and some have had 0 training. And so I guess from my experience, when I look at all the different clients that I've worked with, executive sales leaders from, definitely in that space from a coaching perspective, and there's probably 3 areas that really, truly jump out at me. And I'm going to throw something else into the mix here too. My husband is actually a national sales manager for a company, and that poor guy can't get away from any of it. And so I'm probably going to dob him in a little bit there as well, but it's across the board. And so those 3 areas, if I was to just bullet point them for you, James, is to say, number 1, that they aren't able to hold their people accountable is number 1. Number 2 is that they probably don't know enough about their people. And number 3 is that they don't have the skills to actually transfer the right skills to their people. That is, they don't really know how to coach, and they don't know how to kind of transfer the right types of guidance to their people. So they are the 3 key areas that I find.
Okay, so we've got the 3. They aren't able to hold people accountable, don't know how to coach people, and don't know, and the third one was don't know enough about their people, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got the second and the third one mixed up there, but so they don't know enough about their people and don't know how to coach. Now, they aren't able to hold their people accountable. Does that mean that we've got a saying over here in the States, sometimes bad breath is better than no breath. And we see sales managers and company presidents keep salespeople on that they shouldn't, that they should let go and let those people go off and be heroes someplace else if they're not being very good here. So when you're talking about aren't able to hold salespeople accountable, do you mean they're not able to move them along when they're not making a forecast? They're not able to hold them accountable for their daily sales activities? Or you're talking really about being held accountable for quota, or all of the above?
All of the above, actually. So if we were to kind of take each of those little areas that you mentioned, you have a team of salespeople, and everybody's got a quota, everybody's got KPIs to reach. The business has got to stay afloat, so that's a given. Their commission or their bonuses or their salary is based on them achieving their targets. The thing is with some sales leaders is that they are not comfortable in actually holding their people accountable to certain tasks. I mean, I have lost track of how many sales leaders let the lack of admin or CRM input go through to the keeper. That the amount of salespeople that aren't putting in their call plans or aren't doing their admin or aren't putting in their reports or aren't doing enough prospecting. So it's actually a step back from the KPIs. It's actually the key performance activities that are not being measured or monitored, or the sales team or the salespeople aren't being held accountable to those activities. And we know that salespeople will take the path of least resistance. We know that. And I'll ask the sales manager, say, for what reason is that person allowed to get away with that? Why is it that prospecting or that pipeline is not being qualified? And, the manager can say anything from, Bernadette, I seriously am just too busy. Like, I have got so much on my plate. Or we don't have the resources. So what we're having now, we've now got this sales manager who's into this cycle, if you like, of, I won't say blame, that's probably too harsh, but what's really underlying that is, in a lot of cases, that some don't know what to do, but the bigger part of it, taking time and resources out of that, is that I have this need. I don't want to push my people too much. This need to be liked, this need not to rock the boat, and then you get salespeople who are promoted to managers. They have come from the floor with all their mates, and they're now in this situation where they're supposed to be a leader or they're a manager. They're now having to kind of cross that boundary where they're having to tell their mates and hold their mates accountable. And that becomes an issue.
Is it because the sales manager doesn't create clear lines of authority? And I can remember being in an organization and a sales manager said such and such. And I said, well, shouldn't we be doing that? And they said, oh, we'll wait a week or so and see if he really means it. If he means it, he'll come back and ask for it again. If he doesn't mean it, we can just ignore it.
It's like having kids. Salespeople, it's just like children. Salespeople also need parameters. And, they will push the buttons. They'll see if they can get what they can get away with. And if the sales leader hasn't got that internal fortitude, or has got a very high need for approval, or doesn't know what to do, then, it will be a case of the tail's wagging the dog in a lot of instances.
My first sales management position, I talked to my cousin who'd been a vice president of sales and been at IBM, and he said, well, the first problem you've got is you've never had children, and not having had children, you're going to have a tough time in this job. So, well, what does a sales manager do? How do they start holding people accountable? Do they simply create a series of policies, review the policies regularly? Do they have tools that do it? How do they make that leap to from the unaccountable sales manager to the accountable sales manager?
Pivot off some research there. I'm a distributor here of the Objective Management Group, and there's tools that we use to measure and metrics and all the rest of it around accountability for leaders. And, I think over 16,000 sales managers evaluated, and like it's 57% is the average accountability score across all those managers. When we talk about what can we do about that, first and foremost, when I do work with those leaders, we do have to go back to some of those, what is actually preventing that manager from holding somebody accountable. And it can be for any number of things. It can be this whole need for approval. It can be unsure of managing the pipeline. Maybe it's the metrics or the numbers they're not clear about. What is it, their beliefs that they need to have to support accountability? Are they somebody themselves as a leader who takes responsibility, or are they naturally somebody who blames? I guess from a psychology perspective, there's a whole heap of that behind the scenes if you really wanted to peel the layers back. But outside of that, so many sales managers are just placed into roles because they were the best performing salesperson.
Yeah. Do you test sales managers and then?
Absolutely. And, some of those behaviors are definitely around setting expectations and really getting clarity around their own role. So this whole role clarity comes into play. And when I talk role clarity, I'm not talking a job description. Because if you're to ask a leader, for what purpose are you in this role? Why does your role exist? Those answers are totally different than them rattling off a job description for a position they might be applying for. So this whole thing is getting clear on what those expectations are. And then from that, what are the key performance activities that they need to do, or what are the things that they are prepared to do to achieve their outcome? What are some of those things that they want to be prepared to do? And then it's a case of, well, you know what, if that's the outcome that you want to achieve, and these are some of the things that you're prepared to do to get there, who do you actually need to show up as? And that's where the game changes for a lot of my clients. Outside of that, we start to get into tactics and we start to get into strategy. It's like, okay, what are the expectations of the team? Let's call them in one-on-one or group, however you want to roll that out. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be respected as a sales manager. And this is what it looks like. Getting clarity around the values as well. And respect is a huge value, that everybody will buy into.
Well, I could see you can sit there with your sales manager and say, we can't go into all the reasons why necessarily that you are the way you are, but if you agree to address this issue and you agree on the KPIs that are necessary to be successful, then we're going to help you overcome that particular shortcoming. We've been speaking with Bernadette McClelland. She's the CEO of 3 Red Folders. She's been addressing the 3 biggest mistakes sales managers make and how to fix them. So far, we've talked about being able to hold sales people accountable. When we come back from our break, I want to hear a little bit more about our company. Then we're going to talk about the other 2 items that they don't know enough about their people and they don't know how to coach. Bernadette will be back in just a moment.
Just a couple of quick words to tell you about a couple of things that we've been preaching for some time here. One of them is about, well, you've heard it before, the book by Mary Lou Tyler, and it's called Predictable Prospecting. It shows you how to rapidly add qualified opportunities to your sales pipeline, ensuring consistent and predictable, that's the key word, predictable revenue growth. It's pretty simple to apply these principles, and you can even check it out before you buy. You can get started right away, turning your business into a sales machine. Just download the free sample chapter at Mary Lou Tyler, just like it sounds, MaryLouTyler.com, and look for Predictable Prospecting. And one more thought we're always passing along is that Zooant is a new generation of mobile lead capture systems, one you can use at every trade show and event, or even every day when you're on the road to present and send videos and literature to your customers. Looks great and eliminates the need for manually entering your leads later. Now that's smart. So why not be smart? Go check out Zooant today. ZUANT.com. Zooant.com. All right, back to Jim and his guest.
Thank you, Paul Roberts. Nice to hear from our sponsors today. We've been speaking with Bernadette McClelland. She's the CEO of 3 Red Folders, boutique sales performance and leadership practice headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, but she does have clients across 14 countries, 4 continents. She's been around and she seems to really know her stuff. She's got a great resume. She's been nominated as one of the women to watch by the Sales Lead Management Association, and she's tackling the subject today, the 3 biggest mistakes sales managers make and how to fix them. What about item number 2, that they don't know enough about their people? What do you mean by that?
We kind of continue on from where we were before, and we're talking about how they can hold their people more accountable. And it does dovetail. Well, it's not just holding them accountable, it's actually creating a really great culture, is understanding more about their people. Now, unfortunately, most of us don't go to work to earn money, or we do, but we go there for different reasons. We go there so that we can provide ourselves with choices outside of work. And, those choices are anything, provide for our families or tick bucket list items off or travel to faraway lands, whatever it might be. We don't go to work for the sole purpose of meeting our numbers. And so one of the areas that I coach my sales leaders around is for them to really get to know their people at a personal level. Like, what is it that gets them out of bed in the morning? You know, what are their personal goals? What are some of their challenges? What are some of their aspirations? What are some of the changes that are happening in their, you know, their world? What's important to them? Because if you can actually get to a point with one of your people where you understand what's important to them, then those personal goals or those personal aspirations or those personal things are so much more easily aligned to the business goals. And it's no different to us being, you know, out there in the field, with us truly wanting to understand the changes in our customers' world, the aspirations that they have, you know, some of the changes in their industry and what's really important to them. So it's no different, you know, for us doing that. And so a good sales manager, a really strong sales manager, he will be able to align those personal goals to the business goals. He'll be able to join the dots. And as a result of that, you get so much more loyalty and you get so much more respect and so much more buy-in.
I certainly agree with you. A sales consultant myself. 1 year, I just tripped on, and along with the yearly goals that salespeople would set, I asked them what their personal goals are for the coming year, and I was shocked at the response. One salesperson said, I want to pay off my Harley. And my mother doesn't know I've got it, and I've got it in somebody's garage, and I want to pull up in this brand new Harley that's all paid for. And another salesperson said, well, I want my wife to quit her second job. She's had a second job for years, so this is the year that this has to happen. So certainly that really rings a bell in what you're talking about. Yeah. Before we go on to the third item, tell us a little bit about your company before we go on to the third item so we don't miss it at the end. Three red folders. Tell us about that.
Yes. So, you know, we're over here in Melbourne and we work with a lot of businesses around the world, as I mentioned. We do a lot of coaching. I do a lot of keynote speaking at conferences. But, you know, we really do focus. What makes us different out there is that we work at the intersection of sales process, psychology, and science. So we bring evidence-based, science-backed programs to the table and bring in a lot of the psychology side of things as a baseline. And then we pivot off that with sales process. So it really is a combination. And the success that we get, I'm not someone to say, you know what, I will turn your business around by 50%. I don't believe in that at all. Where we see the changes is at the behavioral level. And once the behavior changes, that then accelerates the activities, the key performance activities, and we know that if those activities are in order, the numbers will come.
And the three red folders refers to?
There's a personal story there, but if I was to just give you the quick upshot there, it's very much around in a business sense and a personal sense. It's having your true north, which is your purpose and your reason for doing what you're doing. It's about having true grit, and in the tough times, it's like digging deep and looking into that resilient side of things and resourcefulness. And it's also about true colours, and that is being able to go about your day in a truly authentic way, because it's not about getting the deal today, it's about being the real deal.
I'm so glad I asked that. I was wondering today, and we do a lot of these interviews, and I get some very personal comments from people, and it's probably one of the best explanations of a company name that I've heard in a long time. What about number 3, where you talk about the very third item that's on your list, and the sales managers who don't know how to coach? What do you mean by a coach? You're talking about sales, how to sell, or how to manage their time, or is it everything? They just don't know how to manage people.
Well, I think today what typically has been done in the past is the sales manager comes off the floor. And so it's usually the high-performing salesperson that gets slotted into a leadership role or a sales management role. And what you're effectively doing there is you're losing people. So you've lost a really top salesperson, but there will also be fallout usually from the team because of the style of management. And so because they're so driven by numbers, they tend to manage by numbers. And so, in my opinion, you can put somebody in that's, typically not your best salesperson. I mean, you look at sports teams. Over here we've got Australian rules football, Australian Football League. We look at key teams where they've put the best player in, and it just doesn't work. Then you get somebody that's completely not in that space, and it sings beautifully. So when I say not being able to coach and that they manage by the numbers, typically when we talk about coaching is based on in the sense of coaching, whether it's executive coaching, sales coaching, whatever type of coaching, is based on asking questions. And it's based on asking the right type of questions that actually will help the person that you're with elicit the answers from their own thinking. And when we actually, and the same once again for a sales call, if you can ask really solid questions that actually gets the client or the prospect or the salesperson to actually speak the answer themselves, to come up with that solution themselves, they are so much more inclined to act on what they have said versus being told what to do. And ask some really solid questions. So there's a whole raft of different types of questions. If there's people listening, with people listening to this, they might go and want to search things such as look at presupposition questions. They are a really powerful way of asking a question. Kaizen questions, that have come out of, continuous improvement. So there's a whole raft of different types of questions that are really powerful that help your salesperson come up with the right answer. It's different again than mentoring. And mentoring is showing somebody what to do. Coaching is the ability to sit back and to actually be the question asker and to pivot off the answers.
So you're talking about just not only asking the salesperson the right questions so they learn and grow, but also teaching them how to ask the right questions in the sales situation.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the training side, for a sales leader to be a really good coach, they should also have some fantastic tools. And in a lot of cases, the top echelon of a business doesn't put a lot of credence into sales training or any form of sales development, which is unfortunate in so many instances. But you know what? I think also a good sales leader will invest in their own development, learn and grow as a result of that. So yes, so that there's definitely a difference between telling and asking, which of course is mentoring versus coaching, and really being able to get to the heart of what's actually preventing your salesperson from doing the activities. They know what to do. We all know what to do. So what's stopping us?
Yeah, you're right. Ultimately, we do know what to do, but something does get in the way. Tell us about the books you've written.
There's been a few over the years. The latest one that I've written is The Art of Commercial Conversations, and it's probably my most favourite one. So this is based on the conscious selling model. So it's a model that I created, which is multi-tiered. It's a nine square model, if you wanted to break it down that way. But, if we were to go horizontal across the bottom, there's sales 1.0. So sales 1.0 from an approach perspective in the old days was very much make contact. The focus was spill your guts and give the brochure. It's all about content. And the outcome was sign the deal, sign the contract. So, we go across that sales 1.0. And then, of course, Mr. Rackham came along in the 80s. We all learned professional selling skills, spin selling, whatever it was, which was very consultative. So our approach there was learning how to connect and rapport building. And then we moved into the focus was very much consultative and the ability to ask questions. And then the outcome based on customer satisfaction, best practices was all about conspiring for the success of our buyer. So we've now got connect, consult and conspire. But where I believe we are now is at sales 3.0. And so for us to go to the market, so for our approach to go to the market now is very much based around having conviction. One of my books was The First Sale is Always to Yourself. So it's having that conviction, not just in the value of your product and the value of the industry that you're in, but the value that you bring to the market yourself. The focus of our conversations, it's not so much content or even consultative now, it's very much contextual. So what's the context? What are the conversations that we're having? What's the real context of those conversations? And how do we articulate our conversation at at not just a specific detailed product-based level, but a more business strategic level. And then finally, our outcome, yes, it used to be the contract, then it was conspiring for the success, but it's all about contribution today, in my book. It's about helping our clients or our potential clients grow their business as a result of our help. Basically, the ABCs of old, always be closing, and then there was ABC, always be connecting when social came along. And I say that it's ABC, always be contributing.
So the title of this book is The Art of Commercial Conversations.
And there's 9 conversations in there.
The subhead is When It's Your Turn to Make a Difference. And it's, I can see it's available up on Amazon today. And your other book was 25 Ways Not to Lose Your Next Sale, Sales Tips for People New to the World of Selling. And that's still available today on Amazon.
That's there. That's a few years old now, but it's still there. And if anybody does want to have a little bit more of a look at the Commercial Conversations one, it's commercialconversations.com. So okay. I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate. I've got some wonderful people that have endorsed it for me. So I'm very, very happy with this book. Yeah.
Well, we're kind of at the end of our program here. It's very nice of you to take the time in Australia, a day ahead of us here, to give us some insight and on your 3 mistakes that sales managers make and how to fix them. You talked about how they aren't able to hold people accountable, and they've got to hold themselves accountable, and the salespeople. They have to get to know people on a personal level, and then they have to be able to know how to coach. And I can see how all these 3 interact. And people can say, well, of course you have to learn those things, but learning them and doing are 2 different things. Bernadette McClelland, how does someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, look, LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. So Bernadette McClelland, and Twitter, I'm on Twitter as well, B_McClelland. And yeah, more than happy to, for somebody to email me if they'd like to ask a question or whatever. I'm more than happy to do that at Bernadette@3redfolders.com. Alternatively, BernadetteMcClelland.com or 3redfolders.com.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today on SLMA and CRM Radio.
You've been listening to another episode of SLMA Radio, brought to you on behalf of the thousands and thousands of members of the Sales Lead Management Association. That has to do with sales lead management or sales lead marketing. It probably starts here with the SLMA Radio Show. Part of the ever-growing list of programs on the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.